It's not just a haircut.
It's an experience.
Welcome to Sons of UCF Live.
Good night.
Charge on.
Hello, Night Nation. Trey Strelko here. Welcome to a special edition of the Sons of UCF Live. Adam, UCF Softball advances in the NCAA Regional. That is our big news. Plus, we'll be talking with Stephen Bronca and giving you a preview of UCF Baseball in the American Athletic Conference Championship coming up. But the big story is out at the Plex. The Knights advance. They defeat Michigan. Second time in 3 days that the Knights take care of Michigan. A regional that UCF in the winner's bracket for this and moves on to Oklahoma. Adam, big story out at the Plex this Sunday.
Yeah, I was so choked up. I had to take a few minutes. I mean, what a fantastic scene. What a fantastic setting. Obviously, history made by UCF softball. Some exhilarating games, pitch by pitch. So many heroes, so many people to talk about, Trace. It was just an awesome opportunity to get a chance to witness that. I know a lot of people were there. The crowd shots were fantastic. You saw so many people from, that we know in the Twitter sphere out there cheering on the Knights. What a fantastic weekend for UCF. And thanks for the notice, by the way. We got like 10 minutes of notice of a show tonight. So I'm glad we could be here for everybody.
I feel like UCF Mike a little bit as I arrived just moments ago from the Plex.
Has anyone seen UCF Mike? Have we heard from UCF Mike at all?
We've not heard. We threw a curveball here by throwing together a show. Wanted to bring you some reaction from the Plex. Also, preview UCF Baseball coming up in the AAC Championship. I had the privilege of sitting in the press box with Eric Lopez, a frequent guest on the Sons of UCF Live, voice of UCF Softball. Adam, let's play the final out call from ELO from the press box.
Woodall delivers. Line. Caught by Macario. 20 years, the day in the making. UCF, for the first time, are regional champions. And for the first time, will advance to the Super Regionals. 9-4. Knights win and charge on to take on Oklahoma. Unbelievable. It's happened. It's happened. 20 years, this day in the making, and the Knights have won their first ever regional.
You can just feel the emotion. It was so exciting to share in that broadcast, be in that moment with Eric Lopez. As he mentioned, all these years in the making, UCF had never gotten past this point. Now they advance to Oklahoma. A big moment in the history of UCF softball.
Yeah, first off, it's the table slap for me, the double table slap from ELO, which is basically his way of trying to calm down, which is fantastic. Again, so many heroes this weekend, Trace. And we can talk about Matty Bejarano, Kemba Woodall, 181 pitches on Saturday, comes back and throws it again on Sunday. I'll borrow a JP Gilbert line. If my arm did 181 of anything, the doctors could just take it the next day because I don't even think I'd be functioning. Just so many heroes, so many big moments throughout the weekend. And even better, I think the scene UCF put on, obviously this was on ESPN, right? The crowd shots, the noise, the announcers were continually talking about the energy the crowd brought. You could hear the UCF cheers, plenty of shots of the Plex and all the people that were there. Just a banner weekend for UCF across the board. And sometimes in these weekends, we've all been a part of this where, we're center stage and maybe we don't quite live up to the billing. But boy, oh boy, did the softball team live up to the billing. Everything you could ask for and more. And they pulled it off, Trace. And you got to tip your cap. I know we have a tough road ahead, but we'll get to all that later on. But you got to tip your cap to what they pulled off this weekend.
Tough road ahead, but you enjoy the moment before you get to work this week preparing for Oklahoma, of course, up in Oklahoma. Kemba Woodall, you mentioned it. We had her dad, Rich Woodall, on the live show last week talking about his daughter. She, with 181 pitches and a complete game win the other day, comes back 24 hours later, relieves Gianna Mancha. Also a storyline here, a freshman, Ashley Griffin with a home run. And, of course, Jada Cody continues to shine, some great defensive plays. Again, just back from that post game, let's hear from head coach Cindy Ball Malone and her opening statement.
We started this year talking about Team 21 and just saying playing with no regrets. And they've done it. So we're not done. We're definitely not done, but just so proud of the fight of this team. Like, I'm super proud of these women and what they've done and the odds that they've fought against. And
you saw pitcher Gianna Mancha there. She said the Knights were still writing their story, and there is still more to write for this UCF softball team. What a tremendous athletic year for women's athletics, from women's basketball, the recent accomplishments of track and field, now softball, volleyball earlier. Been a banner year for the women on the UCF campus.
Yeah, but I mean, for sure. Listen, you can't help but enjoy anytime you see a sport. I mean, and let's all, we can all be transparent. I don't think everybody here tunes in every softball game, right? But I think the reality is the support that Knight Nation throws behind their teams, and when the time comes, when the fans are needed, they're there to support the team. And the women's sports have been dominant all year long. They have been probably head and shoulders above the men's in a lot of different areas. But it's not even really about men's and women's right now, Trace. It's really just about the team and what they overcame. I think getting the regional was one thing, and we all said, okay, we're great to be here. And we all talked about, is that enough? Do we need to win? What makes this successful? I mean, they didn't lose a game, Trace. I mean, they don't drop a game. They go 3-0. Michigan, who obviously is a renowned program, they have one of the top coaches in the nation, and to go out there and beat them twice and beat them pretty soundly both times. I mean, yeah, game one needs some heroics from Maddie to pull that off. But I mean, really, it's just about how hard this team fought, and there were consequences. There were odds stacked against them. But again, you got to love, the things that took place. You mentioned Jada Cody, maybe not the best performance at the plate this weekend, but made a fantastic over-the-shoulder catch at third. Today made a catch up against the screen from a catcher position. I mean, she was all over the place. You can just see the fight in the team, and everyone stepped up when they needed to. And I don't even know who you give the MVP award this weekend, Trace. I mean, who there's so many options here. I don't know if you go to Maddie, do you go to Kamo? Who do you go to for MVP of this weekend? It's a tough call.
Well, Coach Cindy Bombalone says a different hero every day. If there was an MVP, you almost have to say pitcher Kamo Woodall, 181 pitches. But as she mentioned in postgame on Saturday following the win over Michigan, that's not even the most she's ever thrown. When she was a part of the ECU squad, she faced UCF and threw more than 200 pitches. Now, it's just unbelievable, and she comes back in relief today. I will have more reaction and sound bites as soon as we're done with this preview of the UCF Baseball and the American Athletic Conference Championship on my Twitter @SignPez. Of course, you guys will be talking about it on the podcast, and we'll see how things shake up in time for this week's live show. We'll have more reaction from softball. But congratulations to the ladies and Coach Cindy Ball Malone. First ever NCAA regional victory out of the Orlando Regional. Big weekend out at the Plex. We mentioned, though, perhaps some of this will rub off on men's baseball. Men dropped 2 of 3 at home at Cincinnati. Go back, they dropped 2 out of 3 in Tampa. They win 2 out of 3 in Houston. They dropped 2 out of 3 at Cincinnati. However, they do clinch the 2nd seed in the AAC tournament. Begins Tuesday in Clearwater. They'll face number 7 seed Memphis. They beat Memphis up in Memphis 2 out of 3. Let's hear from Coach Lovelady, who I was able to catch up with on Friday, and what he says it's going to take to get a victory and move on.
We just got to go out there, worry about not only just the game that you're playing, but you got to worry about the pitch that you're playing. You can't worry about what's going on all the other games, and just worry about yourself, but just go out there and try to win innings and find a way to score runs. Last year we get down early, we make a big comeback. And then we were able to play really well in game 2 and get to our bracket championship, and then we had to fight and compete 2 really close games and found a way to win. Obviously, trying to get to Saturday in the winners bracket is huge, but you can't do that without winning on Tuesday. So.
Well, let's talk about it more with Stephen Bronco, who calls the broadcasts on ESPN+. Stephen, you were out at the ballpark for these games with Cincinnati. You'd like a little bit more momentum heading into Clearwater.
Yeah, I'm not sure that you would like the momentum, and with the time off going into the tournament, hopefully there's no real carryover to that. But I mean, for Cincinnati's sake, they hope there is. I mean, those bats were as hot as they get, but I do think you want more momentum. You wish you could go off on a win heading into that thing, but I think Coach Lovelady will get them right and get them going.
We saw pitcher Connor Stain for a couple of innings. He's still a bit rusty. They're going to need him in Clearwater.
Yeah, they're definitely going to need him. He did look rusty. First inning looked really good. He looked like the old Connor Stain. His fastball was working. His breaking balls, both of them were working really well. He had the fastball back up to 94, 95 a couple times. So he looked, that was the one telltale that we saw that was like, all right, there's something going on that's not adding up, because he was 90, 91. Now he's back up to the mid 90s, had it working in that first inning. I think it's an endurance thing right now, which they're gonna have to find a way to get him built up in time to start one of these games. But maybe they start him, hey, we'll pitch out of the pen for a couple innings on a Tuesday, something like that, to where they could start him later on in this tournament. But you got to win, so they got to do what they got to do.
Yeah, that was my question, Stephen. How do you think the rotation will set up? Obviously, a double elimination tournament. We know we play Tuesday. After that, a lot of unknowns. How do you think the rotation sets up for this week?
Yeah, I think Ben Vespi has done enough to be that guy to start on Tuesday. I think the last few Friday starts, he's been a guy that shows you consistent amount of innings, some success. He mixes well enough to get guys out. I think he's the guy that's probably earned that spot, especially with Connor not being exactly who you thought Connor Stain was going to be. So I think Vespi is that guy to go on Tuesday.
What about the rest of the, just the lineup, the rest of the games strategically as a manager? Do you do anything different being this is double elimination that you're going to see some teams and you have a kind of another loss in your pocket tactically?
I think you play every game to win right now. Like on Tuesday, you have to win, because if you win Tuesday, you're off Wednesday and you play Thursday. So every pitcher you had available on Tuesday that you didn't throw is going to be even more rested for that Thursday game. Wednesday gets tight sometimes. You look at it from a closer standpoint, right? You want your closer to be ready. And if you got to throw him back-to-back days, that's tough. But if he's got a day off in between, that's really good for them. So if you got a close game on Tuesday where they're playing against Memphis and it's a one-run game, and you have Kyle Kramer come out of the bullpen and shut the door like he's done, then you have him on a day's rest on Thursday. You feel really good about that. But you're trying to win that game so you can get the day off.
All AAC teams were scheduled to play Thursday, Friday, Saturday. The threat of inclement weather moved up to a doubleheader on Thursday, and then the nights concluded on Friday. How do you think that can play to their advantage, having a little bit more rest and a little bit more opportunity to set what they want to do in Clearwater?
I think there was some strategy behind that, and I don't blame them. I think both sides wanted that, right? You got an extra day's rest. You think about it. You finish your series on Friday. Basically, everybody's available on Tuesday. I mean, that's enough rest for these college kids to be ready to go. So basically both teams now, because they didn't play on Saturday, have every pony in their bullpen ready to go. I think that's a huge advantage, to be honest.
All season long, we've talked about ups and downs, and Coach Lovelady was pretty annoyed following the losses, saying that we're at a point in the season now where he would like to see consistency. He'd like to see clean defense. He'd like to see quality at-bats. I mean, I still don't know that any of us know what we're going to see in Clearwater.
No, and you're right. It has been a roller coaster. But one thing I do know is that this team last year, which has a ton of returners, found a way to turn it on for this tournament. So hopefully those guys can lead the way and do just that. I talked to a lot of those guys, and this was like heading into this past weekend, this is what they were excited about, was the tournament. It was almost like if there were 2 or 3, it didn't really matter. It almost seemed like they were not looking ahead, but really excited about this tournament. And so I hope that is a sign of things to come. I hope that's something that shows. I think that's, like I said, you look at those guys and some of those pitchers that had to pitch in those situations in that tournament last year and come from behind wins and close wins and whatnot that they had. I mean, you got those guys returning. They know how to win in Clearwater. So hopefully that plays to their advantage.
Well, Trace mentions off the top, we took 2 of 3 at Memphis earlier in the season. Obviously, they're our first opponent Tuesday. Give us a scouting report. What can we expect when we play Memphis? What do they do well? What are the things the Knights have to do well to beat them?
Yeah, they're going to face Landon Gartman, if I had to guess. He's their Friday night guy. And he pitched really well against them last time. He threw 6 innings, only gave up like 4 hits or something like that, and had like 6 strikeouts. And then they tried to have a bridge guy that didn't work out, but they threw their closer for the last 3 innings. A kid, I think his name's Dalton Kendrick, and he's a pretty good arm out of the back end. And so that formula didn't work out well for UCF last time. And so hopefully, they can get to him now that they've seen him once. They had a couple guys in the lineup that you watch out for, but man for man, UCF is a better team. It's just whether or not, if Gartman shows up the way he did that Friday night in Memphis, I'm not sure. I mean, we'll see what happens. I mean, he pitched really, really well against them. So
what about the rest of the field? ECU, number 1 seed. They are 20-4 in conference play. Are they the prohibitive favorite to win this thing, in your opinion?
I don't know. I mean, they were the favorite last year, right? And they went there, and I didn't think they looked like a different team last year when we faced them there. So they didn't look like they were locked in. It was almost like they knew already that they had a spot in the postseason somewhere, and they kind of just coasted through it, took a vacation down in Clearwater. Right now, from what I've seen, everyone's talking about the American being a one-bid league. That's right. But I think ECU's done enough to be in the postseason already. I think if they win their first game, they're a shoo-in for sure. Right now, the last time I looked at one of those predictions, they were a number 2 seed in a regional somewhere. So I don't know what you're going to see out of that team. I do know that I think offense wins, and their offense is very, very good. But one of the better offenses I saw all year was probably Cincinnati this past weekend from top to bottom. That was one of the best offenses we've seen. And so don't sleep on that team. I don't think they could pitch it well enough to win it, but I do think offensively they have a chance. I mean, if they swing it the way they swung it this past week in Orlando, watch out for that team too.
Interesting comments about ECU. Coach Lovelady in the postgame said it has been for a number of years now, ECU and all the rest. And that caught my ear. And I said, do you look at them as head and shoulders above? He said, well, during the regular season, but maybe not necessarily in the conference tournament, because perhaps with their RPI and where they are, as you allude, that they may already be in the NCAA field. So this gives an opportunity to be a 2-bid league. Somebody else might emerge, and it could be anybody.
I agree. And it's anybody's turn. I mean, you saw last year. I mean, USF was not a good team last year, just like they're not a good team this year. And they found a way to win the tournament last year. I mean, it just, that's the way it goes. But I do think that he's exactly right. They did not look like a good tournament team last year. They looked totally different. And I mean, if you think that you already have a bid into the postseason, you have to start thinking about your team and their health heading into a regional as well. You know, you might play it a little differently. Now they don't have the same record they had last year. They had 40-something wins going into this thing last year. So that was a little different, but I think they have done enough. So it'll be interesting to see how they play it. I think I agree with Coach Lovelady's comments.
You mentioned health there. Connor staying back. Of course, he's had the blister issues. We haven't seen much of him over the last several weeks. Of course, what we're going to see from him in Clearwater, we're not sure. But Knights also get back Alex Freeland a couple of days before this conference tournament. So the guys they've had out that they get back, they're about as full strength as they could be going into Clearwater.
Yeah, we didn't see Andrew Sundin besides one at bat this past weekend, so that concerns me a little bit.
He was out at the softball games though, causing a ruckus.
Did he have a limp? Because every time I saw him walking around the stadium at John Uliano Park, he was limping around pretty bad. And if that kid's out, I know the depth behind the plate right now. Thank goodness a guy like Cole Russo has started to get some consistent at bats, and he's been doing much better with them. He's got a couple home runs recently in the last couple of weeks. But the depth behind the plate right now is pretty slim if he's not playing. So it is great to have Alex Freeland back. That kid's the ultimate competitor. He didn't have to come back, right? He did enough probably this year to switch hitting shortstop, hitting just under 300 with 9 homers in 2/3 of a season to get drafted. Like, he didn't have to come back, but ultimate competitor wants to come back. I mean, tip your hat to that kid. Connor Stain coming back is one of the best pitchers in the country. So they do have a lot of the right people back in, let's get them out of the training room and ready to play. So hopefully we can get those things together and get going. But I am worried behind the plate. If Sundin is not healthy, that scares me, because say you got that 1:00 game in Clearwater. I mean, one of those days, I mean, it's hot, and then maybe you got to play the next day. I mean, that's tough on a catcher. And so with that depth that we don't have behind the plate right now, that's something that does scare me a little bit.
We mentioned the softball, Steven. Obviously, you and I were talking before the show started. Just your thoughts on a fantastic weekend out of the softball complex. I know you watched a bunch of the games yourself. Just your thoughts as a fan watching what went down this weekend.
Gosh, I mean, just watching how much those girls compete. I mean, they compete every pitch. I mean, it was watching them it's so much fun to watch, because every pitch they're competing. Their at-bats are so good all the time. They're fouling pitches off. They're battling. They're driving balls all over the field. I mean, everyone thought that, 2-1 going into the 7th inning against Michigan. I mean, they were just cashing in. Here comes a pinch hitter. It's basically game over. And Maddie comes up there, base hit, double, whatever. I mean, yeah, she hit a double, ties the game up, and then later, 4 innings down the road, she wins the game with another hit. Like, the energy that they have is fantastic. I mean, it was a lot of fun to watch.
Well, Trace mentioned they showed a lot of shots of the baseball team in attendance watching this game. Can Coach Lovelady use any bit of that magic this weekend to maybe pump the guys up for the upcoming? Is there any crossover there, any speech he can give to say, hey, take some of what you just saw and apply it to yourselves?
I think as a player, you see that and you say, all right, this is what postseason's about. This is the energy that we can bring. This is the energy that this type of crowd, this type of competition brings out of you. Like, let's go do this. That would fire me up. I mean, I get fired up watching games. I still have that competitive fire in me. I mean, I was screaming and yelling at the TV today watching the Rangers game. I mean, I and that's not because I'm just a fan. It's because I'm super competitive. And so as a competitor watching these girls play, like, you want to go to war. Like, let's go. Like, that energy is contagious. So hopefully watching them, being in attendance, feeling that energy, that is something that carries over for them and lights a fire under them to where they want to go do the same thing.
Well, let's wrap up with this. If UCF emerges out of Clearwater, wins the American, what will have gone right? Who will have performed well?
Yeah, they're gonna pitch. I mean, you're gonna need to see Ben Vespi and Connor Stain both be lights out. And then I think on the offensive side, you're going to need to see guys like Ben McCabe and Tom Jostin really lead them at the plate. 2 veterans that were there last year, and then 2 guys on the mound who have had success this year that really got to lead the way. So those guys right there, a couple of guys in the lineup that have been there, done that, and a couple of guys on the mound that have had success and need to continue that success to where they win some games out in Clearwater.
Is David Litchfield a wild card in this?
I think David Litchfield is going to be fantastic out of the bullpen. He's going to be that guy. I think he's a great guy to bring up because they're going to be in a close game and they're going to need him to shut the door, whether it's the 7th, 8th, or 9th, and he's going to be that guy. He looks different. I got to see him pitch again this weekend, and he's back to having that sinker slider, ball moving both directions, coming out of his hand pretty good, and he's down in the zone and he's getting some swing and miss. Not a lot of barrels being found. So he's another guy that can really hopefully lead this team. He's been to Clearwater. I mean, he's been there for 100 years at this point, it seems like. So he's been to Clearwater as long as that stadium's been there. So, I mean, he should be another one of those guys that can lead the way. Those veterans are really going to be the guys that the young ones, because we know how young this team is in a lot of areas too. So they could really look up to.
Let's flip the question. If it's a short week in Clearwater, what has happened?
They didn't hit and they didn't pitch both. I mean, because I really don't
inconsistency.
It's what happened is fastballs got up in the zone on Ben Vespi and the bullpen, and you got carved up by Landon Gartman, who he's pretty good, but I think this lineup is better. But we'll see. They got to put it together as a whole. I mean, that's what we haven't seen, right? We haven't seen a whole lot of games where it's the offense is gone, the defense has gone, and the pitching is gone all together. We haven't seen a whole lot of those. I mean, you could probably count them all on one hand. We've had one where you're winning 15-10 over here, and we've had other ones where you're winning 1-0, right? And so we've seen both sides of those things. We want to see them put it all together. So the consistency is a huge deal right now.
And you want to win Tuesday.
Have to.
2-seed UCF against 7-seed Memphis. You get the day off Wednesday. You stay on the winner side of the bracket because you don't want to be on the other side of it.
Well, and the other thing is the good part about this seed, besides it being at 4:00, which is going to be a little warm, but the good news is that game won't start any earlier than 4:00. These other games, they're 45 minutes after the first game ends in front of them. So the first game of the day is set, and then the 4:00 game is set. So you're playing at 4:00 or after. So it's not one of those deals where you got to show up 3 hours before a game just in case, the game in front of you goes an hour and a half or something crazy. You know what I mean? So what time you're playing mentally, physically, that helps you prepare a little bit better for that game as well.
Stephen Branca, we appreciate you joining us all season long and helping us set the stage for UCF and the American Athletic Conference Championship in Clearwater this coming week.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Steve.
Thanks, Steven.
All right, Adam, what do you think? You've heard Steven's analysis. You've seen what this team has done all year. Will it surprise you if they have a short week? Will it surprise you if they get out of Clearwater into the NCAA tournament?
No, neither really will. I mean, I think Steven said it best, right? That we could turn on the TV on Tuesday and we're up 15-0 and be like, oh my goodness, this is the team. And then we go back Thursday and lose 13-0. Like that wouldn't shock anybody, unfortunately. But I do think there's something to seeing this team come together. It's tournament time. We saw them last year. This is a team that understands what this week is about. They've been through it before. They know how to play in a week like this. There's veterans on that team. Coach Lovelady obviously been through it. You got to hope that they can pull them aside and say, hey, why not us? Why not now? We battled all year long. We fought. Here we are, a 2 seed. Maybe we don't have everything we need right now. Some guys dinged up, but why not us? Why not now? We've done something like this before. You hope that they can take that kind of mojo and that energy. But having said that, if we lost 13-0 to Memphis, I'd be like, yeah, well, sounds about right. So you just got to hope that there's something from a competitive standpoint and there's some muscle memory of being in that stadium just a year ago that they can draw back on to hopefully help them this year.
Answer your own question from earlier. Do you think there's anything of those baseball players, Coach Lovelady out at the Plex as well, taking in the action, that they can take from and be inspired and motivated by? Or is that just something we like to talk about and ask?
Man, I hope so. Yeah, man, I hope so. I mean, Steven said it well. Like you see people compete, you see energy, you see things come together. You know, they're wearing your school colors. You hear people cheering your name. Now, the difference, obviously, is that's a home game. They're going to be on the road in Clearwater. Not sure how many Knights fans are making the trek over for a Tuesday afternoon game. But you hope they kind of take some of that energy and some of that mojo and just say, hey, you know what? We're ready to go. We got our juices flowing. We were in a competitive environment all weekend. This is kind of what it's about. We're ready to go. I hope so. I mean, this sounds like very Disney movie-ish, right? Where you go to the game and the other team wins. You go, now we're going to go get them, son. But you got to hope they took some energy from what they saw from the team this weekend, that they can go out and at least have some momentum, to at least be in that kind of environment, that atmosphere. If nothing else, hopefully they look at it and say that we've got to have this for us next year, right? Now, I know that you don't control who hosts the tournament and some of those items, but you win games, you take care of business. You don't have to worry about some of that stuff. So I hope so, but I'm also a realist, and this isn't a movie, and I'm sure that, you know, when the first pitch comes around, I'm sure Ben Vespe's not thinking about Matty Bejarano's double. You know what I mean? I'm sure that's probably not going to be on his mind as he's throwing on the mound on Tuesday.
Well, as Gianna Mancha said, they're still writing their story, and this baseball team still gets to write its story. As Coach Paul Malone has said of softball, a different star and hero emerges every day. And maybe Coach Lovelady can find those stars that emerge on this baseball team and make it a long run and victorious in Clearwater. It certainly isn't out of the question, but they're going to have to be more consistent. Nonetheless, baseball and softball play on for yet another week in May, and that's a good thing. You'll be talking about both, no doubt, on the Sons of UCF podcast this week. What else do you have in store for us?
It's a great question, Trace. You know, we
that's why that's
a great question, Trace. You know, you'll see the old staple segments. We got a couple of new things up our sleeve this week, segment wise. And a couple of possible guest options. We're really just waiting on confirm. I got 2 maybes here, so we'll see who gets back into the messages first, Trace. But a couple of quick items. We got some people in the chat. I just want to throw some stuff up on the screen for everybody here. Robert, who's a longtime listener, lauding Matty Bejarano's performance this weekend. And Trace, he also wanted me to mention, I know we saw, and you asked a great question, Matty's brother is someone who's very important to her, and there's an effort to try to figure out how to get him to see some games. So I know some folks on Twitter are efforting that, going through UCF compliance. So keep an eye out for that on some of that stuff. Robert also saying MVP.
That was a bite. You know, I followed Maddie throughout the year, her brother Tanner with Down syndrome, and she says she's playing for him. And I just felt like, considering the moment that she had Saturday, how big she came up to ask about him, and you just saw her light up, and that took off. And she FaceTimed with her brother. It's on her social media, just the big smile on his face. And there's so many different storylines for this UCF softball team, and that has been one to make you smile throughout the season.
Yeah, so follow Robert for more on that too. Robert also says MVP goes to the fans. And again, Trace, I know you were in the Plex, so you didn't get to see the version that I saw at home. First of all, the announcers, they thought it was humid. Just FYI, they thought
they
it
were
was
accurate about that.
Okay.
So they said it too many times. They were very accurate. Hot and steamy. It certainly has shown longtime fans, like a friend of ours, Kevin Reese, who has said that the way this the Plex faces into the sun, there's no shade. It exposed other things, of course, that now with a packed house, you saw not enough capacity. They had to bring in bleachers, scoreboard inadequate, and certainly the press box just too small for a stage like this. And, that Big 12 call comes not too far from now. And so you can tell that there are some upgrades that are definitely needed out at the UCF softball complex.
Mario, another frequent listener, love seeing the former players in the stands. Trace, they were a hit with the TV cameras. They were up there doing their cheers, doing the chants. You saw them kind of run down the field. Nothing cooler than when you get to see the alumni come back. Coach Ball Malone even mentioned it in her post-game press conference on the field with ESPN, mentioned the alumni coming back, how important that was, kind of choked up a little bit through that process. You love seeing how much fun everybody had out there, particularly some of the alumni softball players.
They drove the crowd, right? And
yeah.
just, perhaps they didn't always get to have moments that were on this scale, but they all got to participate in this moment. And Coach Ball Malone has been so good about integrating the alumni and making them a part of the today. She keeps saying it, the past, the present, building to the future. And JP Gilbert, our friend, said, we're all going to start wringing our hands on social media Monday. Timo, have you got that contract extension? Have you sweetened the pot to keep Cindy Ball Malone? Because you got to imagine she is a hot coaching candidate considering her success at UCF.
I'm pulling a mic here, asking you something on the fly. What is her contract status? Do we have any idea how long her contract is?
If I'm not mistaken, she has a contract extension for a couple of more seasons, but, does Timo go in and sweeten the pot? I'd love to, and I'm not the AD, but I'd love to see him just say, I'm going to pay you the highest salary of all the current Big 12 coaches, but there are ramifications for that, right? Then, women's soccer, men's soccer, everybody else wants to get paid more based on their success. So that's difficult for him, but she certainly seems happy here. The Big 12 is going to be a step up in caliber. It's a superb league, and it remains a fertile recruiting ground for her in the state of Florida. Florida softball has certainly been more in the spotlight with the success of Florida State, Florida, UCF. So you want to keep her, but you remember we were celebrating women's basketball defeating the Gators, and a high moment that was. And less than a week later, right, Coach Katie Abramson Henderson was a Georgia Bulldog. So let's hope that's not the case for Cindy Ball Malone, that she'll be here for a long time to come.
Update also, I don't know if you know, Trace, Florida State lost. They are out. So they lost. Mississippi State will be advancing. Florida State, the number 2 national seed, not moving on. Jan,
that's a shame. My sister is a Florida State alum, and so that'll come up in conversation.
Our apologies. Jan mentioned it was hot out there. Obviously, we talked about that. But, Trace, you were there. How much do you think having the home field advantage actually helped UCF? I know we talk about hosting a regional, and it's a big deal and all that stuff. But the reality was having it in your own backyard, sleeping in your own bed, but knowing conditions, knowing the field of play, knowing where everything's at just from a tactical standpoint. Do you think that factored in at all, especially the heat and the humidity for UCF?
How could it not, right? You're in the comfort of a ballpark you're familiar with, your home, you're with family, friends, your routine is consistent, where the other schools were disrupted by the weather delays, the lightning delays, 3+ hours on Saturday before games were called, teams out at the Nicholson Fieldhouse, not able to go back to their hotel. And then you saw on Sunday, Michigan, it seemed that they just gave all they had, but they were wilting, right? They had played a game earlier in the day. That has to catch up with you. It was hot, as mentioned on the ESPN broadcast. It was humid. It's not Michigan weather. It's not weather in Philadelphia where Villanova is, and it's certainly not South Dakota. They have summer, but did they have it like it was over the weekend? I say advantage UCF.
So you were there, obviously, the entire weekend, right? You saw every pitch that UCF took part in. What will be your lasting memory from this weekend? Again, historic weekend from UCF's perspective. 2 years from now, when you're recapping this on the Sons of UCF Live, number 642, what will be your lasting memory from this weekend?
Just that this program has now done something that no other softball program at UCF had done before. Advance out of an NCAA regional, host that, be ranked in the top 20 throughout the season. The schedule that Cindy Ball Malone put together when they went to California, when they went to Clearwater, when they played a Michigan earlier this year, all of these pieces, and the chemistry of this team. A different star every day. It is certainly true. These are very interesting, entertaining young ladies that root for one another, and you can't help but be brought into that moment and root for them. We will be talking about this team and pitcher Kama Woodall's performance for a long time to come, no matter what happens as they continue to write their story in this NCAA tournament.
All right, I'm gonna do a hot take question for you here. Obviously, we've been a part of some AAC championships on the football field. A couple of memorable ones. Obviously, the Memphis game comes to mind. Is this the biggest event and sort of victory we've had on campus in UCF history?
Boy, that's hard, right? And it's almost like you got to put football into a completely different category. So you can't compare moments like Mike Hughes' return and that Black Friday game up against a moment like softball. But certainly a men's basketball NIT tournament. You remember that run from a couple of years ago. You know, Elo said something interesting to me, that UCF advancing as they did in that extra inning thriller, 3-2 and 11 innings over Michigan, that would have been what the equivalent would have been had UCF shot against Duke gone in. That was the magnitude of it within the softball world, right? And so certainly one of the biggest moments, I'd have to catalog it because, you know, men's and women's soccer have hosted and done things before, but certainly it will go up there quite high. Volleyball also hosting NCAA regional, but the atmosphere, this is a program on the rise, and it just culminates what has been a tremendous year for women's sports at UCF.
And Wade gets in with Boom the Sooner. Obviously, we are heading to Norman, Oklahoma to play the number one seed Oklahoma Sooners, who Trace won 20-0 today over Texas
Only
Tech.
20-0?
Only they missed the extra point, unfortunately.
Yeah.
So a tough task ahead.
Run rule, Texas A&M.
I know Coach Ball Malone wanted to focus on this day and their team and kind of what they did, but a tough task coming up here this weekend. Again, best of three, so the format changes a little bit now once you get to the super regionals. Best of three, of course, a tough task for UCF coming up this weekend.
No doubt, but all UCF Night Nation fans, alums, former softball players in this current team and its coaches get to celebrate this moment. Remember a guy we brought on before, he really took off, Big Game Boomer. With all of the lists, you know, no doubt a big Oklahoma Sooner fan. I messaged him today, and we were talking about, he said he's looking forward to seeing UCF. This even before UCF defeats Michigan. And I said, well, that's if you guys get through it. And he just laughed. And then at the end, I messaged him and said, bring it on. And he said, you better bring your offense. So maybe he'll show up on this week's Thursday live show. That might be a guest we can bring back, and little John with as we
well, I just can't wait until, I mean, is there any other UCF to Oklahoma ties you can think of? I just can't.
Maybe a former quarterback might even throw out a first pitch. That would be a good story.
Josh Heupel's coming back to the pitch. Unbelievable! Wow. Okay. All right, we got Josh Heupel out there. Yeah. I'm sure that
it's an interesting storyline. Whether it's a storyline that is covered on the ESPN broadcast or not, it's certainly a Night Nation an interesting storyline.
Robert throws in their second event on campus only to College Game Day. It's another good one we forgot about.
Yeah. But you know what's nice is, and we've talked about this, you've been doing the podcast for so many years, for more than a year we've been doing the live show. For the longest time, it was victory over Alabama in football some 20 years ago, and there weren't other big moments. And now the big moments continue to stack up, and that's nice that we can rank and shuffle them around and see where they go. But certainly this women's basketball defeating Florida, the Gasparola Bowl win over Florida, it's been a pretty good year with athletics.
Yeah, all told, you said off the top, obviously the women's programs have had a fantastic season thus far, and this one's not over yet. Obviously, baseball still has a chance, right? You're not out till you're out, so it could be a fun, exciting week. Obviously, baseball kicks off Tuesday, as Steven said, at least 4 p.m. Could be later, depending upon the game in front of them. And
most likely, though, at 4, unless there are weather delays and extra inning affairs. And we saw a 4-hour and 15-minute softball game, right, between UCF and Michigan over the weekend. So, but 4 o'clock, you think that the 2 games will clear by then. But, you know, it's May in Florida. We saw lightning delays, 3-hour plus weather delays. So that could certainly happen in Clearwater as well.
Certainly could. And then softball, I don't think the schedule is out yet in terms of game times, but obviously this weekend at Norman, Oklahoma. Busy week, Trey. So we'll be back on Thursday, right? Are you going to pull another one of these? Are we going live on Tuesday now? Are we going live on Wednesday? I need to schedule. Mike clearly needs to schedule. I do think Mike is in the chat. I think this is him because it's from Sons of UCF. I didn't write it, so I assume it's from him.
Mike, I didn't get a memo. I messaged him.
I sent Mike like 19 emails today. But so
I will say this for the week ahead.
Tuesday, Wednesday, what are we doing? I mean,
everybody needs to be flexible. Is basically it. So baseball is Tuesday at 4. Charge on Tour is on the Space Coast Tuesday.
Mhm.
If UCF wins on Tuesday, they'll advance to Thursday. I'm hoping that I can get over to Clearwater for some games, and it just depends on what they do. Charge on Tour stop in Oviedo is Thursday, and we may have some guests joining us. So I think in one way or another, we'll stick to Thursday live at 8. And I'm not quite sure how I'm going to be a part of it, but I know you can carry it on. But you'll need Mike right off the top so that whatever that reason is, you glitch right off the top.
Yeah.
For a while, for a couple of weeks, it was me with the technical issues, but I don't know what's going on your side. But I think we might have some guests that join us from Oviedo, and maybe I'll be in Clearwater. We'll see what's going on with UCF baseball throughout the week. So everybody just needs to stay flexible. But I'm glad we were able to come on Sunday and repost this for those that missed it live. Reaction to softball right after we conclude here. I'm going to post more sound bites post game on my Twitter @signpez, and we need a regular Sunday show. You need that with different hosts because it's already too much of me. By the way, I thank you for turning the sound bites and being flexible as well, Steve.
Yeah.
And I said let's continue to aim for 8, and I'm thinking, all right, they're bringing Michigan to us in post game instead of UCF, so it's going to delay me a little bit. And I didn't even make it all the way through. I missed a question or two, but I'm uploading that soundbite from Coach Ball Malone so that you could have it off the top of the show. I uploaded the ELO clip, and I'm thinking, if everything goes right, and then that red light, couple of red lights as I got off the 417, and you're like, you told me 8, and I'm like,
behind the curtain here. First off, we weren't sure if we were going to do this live. We were just going to tape this and release it. But, Trace was like, hey, maybe we can get live. I think we can do the live. I'm like, okay, we can try the live. I said, do you want to do 8:30? He says, no, we can make 8. Definitive. It wasn't even like a question. It wasn't even like a ... It was a definitive, we can make 8 o'clock. So I said, link coming soon. 7:50, he says, I'm 9 minutes out. So we got it.
Well, no, not that I was 9 minutes out, but that we were 9 minutes out, and then I was 5 minutes from home.
Yeah.
And then I would need to set up and lights and plug in the internet and still cut a little walk and talk from the parking lot. I mean, I did live TV for a number of years. It's just more exciting, a little thrill ride.
No, it was a joyride, and I'm glad we could all get together. I know a lot of folks want to at least hear and talk about some UCF softball and preview the baseball. So if again, you're listening to this as a replay, sorry we missed you, but you can always check all the replays out, Trace. You can go to our website, tunatesmedia.com, go to our YouTube channel. Our fantastic sponsor, Gordon and Partners, help make all this happen for us as well. So make sure you check them out, fortheinjured.com. Everything's there. Even Robert's happy for the bonus show. There's nothing. If we've made Robert happy, Trace, I feel like we've done our job.
If we've made, as Robert goes, so goes the Sons of UCF Live. We missed Mike, who may not be so happy about some other sports results, namely the Florida Panthers.
Time to hunt.
Are not doing so well, but Miami Heat are still making things interesting. It has been an interesting weekend for UCF softball, historic weekend, advancing in the NCAA regional, heading to Oklahoma. They continue to write their story, and then we'll see what lies ahead for baseball this coming week in the AAC Conference Championship in Clearwater. We want to thank Stephen Bronca for being available to talk with us, Adam for running all of the sound bites and joining us for this half hour or so. 45 minutes. Wow, we spent 40. Boy, we can talk about anything for nearly an hour, can't we?
You want the mailbag music? We can end with the mailbag. You're, okay, we're good. All right, just let me know.
That's all right. That's all right.
Yeah.
All right. Mike, we'll see you this coming week. Be sure to catch the Suns pod everywhere you get downloadable content, and then be sure to tune in on the Sons of UCF Live this week. Not quite sure what we're going to have. We're going to have to see how the week plays out, but you'll have fun with us. Adam, thank you for Adam. Mike not here. I'm Trace Trelko. Go Knights, everyone.